So obviously, the first three guests have already just done talks, so you all know who they are. Charreah, do you want to introduce yourself to those members of the audience who haven't seen your talks yet?
Good afternoon. My name is Charreah Jackson. I'm the senior editor at Essence Magazine, where I've written about relationships for Essence, which is owned by Time Inc., so also Fortune and Time Magazine. I met Charlie because of a tweet at another dating conference, and here we are.
So Charreah is obviously from a journalist perspective. The others are all from company owner perspectives. And for those of you who don't know me, I used to write for The Guardian and for Time Out, so I definitely come at PR from a journalist perspective as well. And so I thought to kick things off, I quite wanted all of you to share two favourite PR campaigns or stories, one of your own and one from someone else. So just to give you a bit of time to think, I'll explain my ones. So the one that I think has really smashed the dating industry is Badoo's use of Whitney Wolf and her sexual harassment case. I think that has been phenomenal, the way that they have launched themselves as a really female empowering brand off the back of something that could have been really, really negative. So I think that's amazing. My own personal PR story. Last year for the Dating Awards, we teamed up with M14, who spun up a dating app for me within the case of a week called Specs, S-P-E-X, putting the sex back into wearing specs. Complete PR stunt. Like, we got so much coverage. I sent one email to one British journalist, and we got coverage all around the world, including in like Mexico and in the Netherlands. And it got called. I remember translating this Spanish document, and it was like, Tinder has launched for people with 4 eyes. So that's my personal PR story. Robyn.
The stuff that I like, I think about it, it's the most effective stuff for us. Anything involving BuzzFeed is phenomenally impactful, and I think it's the only stuff that we've done that really shifts the needle significantly. So we did a video, they did a video, but it was gay guys and lesbians swap dating apps for a week, and they talk about what that experience was like. It was not so good for Grindr. They came out really badly off the back of it, and ours came out really well. But it was like huge volumes of downloads, like really high traffic. My favorite at the moment in industry, I think Hinge are doing some really cool PR stuff, like consistently keep pushing it out. I think the most effective stuff they do is just always like the lists of the most eligible bachelors and bachelorettes, and it gets picked up by all mainstream news titles. I think they just handpick good-looking people and put them through, but I think it works super duper well, and I like reading it.
Thanks. So in terms of Bay-related, one of the things that worked for us really well was actually our launch and how we drove a lot of our initial downloads. So what we did was we did an event at Howard University, which is a historically black college in the U.S., probably one of the maybe the second biggest black college in the U.S., and kind of known as a place as a mecca for kind of for the culture. And so what we did was they have a basketball game every year called Springfest. And what we did was everyone who came into the venue with the app downloaded on their phone, they got a ticket. And at halftime, we allowed one person was chosen, and they shot foul shots for $20 a pop, and however many they could make in a minute, we paid them out. So one woman ended up winning. She made 7 foul shots, got paid $140. But by the end of that month, we had 17,000 downloads. And that is because of the activation that we did was picked up by, I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with Complex magazine, but their Facebook page picked it up. It's a very popular magazine in the US, and got about 3 million views on Facebook. So it's like a good integration with students, and then drove a lot of press. Within dating, I think Tinder has done a really good job at kind of doing things that are natively integrated into the product, but also have a good press story. So one of the things that comes to mind is the integration they did with Jason Derulo, who's a pretty popular R&B star in the U.S. What they did was they had him his album appear as a profile within the app that you could swipe on, and then it then went to his page to download tickets to the show, and I think maybe the album, etc. So it not only drove press, but it was a great integration that was native to the app as well, and actually I think it resulted in like a revenue share between that music industry group and Tinder. So I thought it was pretty well done.
Awesome. I'll start with the industry one. I really like what OkCupid do in terms of the making all of their kind of stats available. And I think it's a really interesting way of doing not just necessarily a one stunt thing, which you'll get the Associated Press, but what they've done over the years is people actually look to the facts and figures that OkCupid release, and I'm sure everyone's aware, but they give you stats on everything, on profile pictures, on how things are adopted, on usage, and then actually it kind of just leaves the journalists to make up their own stuff, which I know a lot of journalists don't really like anymore. We're in the days of copy and pasting, but it gives a really good long tail of coverage, but more importantly, they're referenced in a lot of other people's stuff. So we've put out a lot of press in the past that the journalist has then gone to do a bit more background information and then end up mentioning the OkCupid thing. So I think strategically it's actually a really, really smart move.
It was OkCupid that underpinned, it's the stats on black dating, wasn't it, that underpinned some of the stuff that they did?
It underpinned the stuff that they did. It actually drove a lot of their growth. OkCupid was a huge part of their content marketing strategy.
Sure. So yeah, that's super smart. So our version of that, we do a bit of research, asterisks research, and we did some research maybe about a year ago or so into just demographic searching. So this is just through surveys of finding out our customers a little bit more. We identified that our female users have a higher average income than other people within their demographic, which sort of makes sense logically, because obviously they're single, so often they have a higher rate of employment than other people within their demographic. But we packaged that into a story around how dating younger men gives you better career success. And we kind of spoke to a few journalists that got a little bit carried away, which we encouraged them to get carried away. So it ended up in this massive global story about how actually sleeping with younger men makes you better at work. And one of my favourite places that it went on Fox News, and it was just the most amazing placement for us, because they said, Toy Boy Warehouse. Let me repeat that, Toy Boy Warehouse. And I'm like, I couldn't have paid for this. It's totally irrelevant because we're UK, but it's just one of those things that it's kind of an alternative fact, but it had truth based in it and got carried away. So yeah, I like that.
Before you pass on the mic, I thought you were going to tell the Carol Vorderman story. Can you tell them the Carol Vorderman story?
Oh, yeah, this is really good. This is more recent as well. So do we know Carol Vorderman? Okay, it's quite British. There's a few shakes of the head.
Definitely Google her name after this.
Yeah, so Carol Vorderman is basically a bit of a darling in the UK. She, the TV show Countdown, she's the smart from Countdown, and she's really popular. And she's won Rear of the Year a few years as well. She's about 50, I think. So she's kind of perfect in our space. So she was on the TV show I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here, and while she was on the show, she ended up doing really well. I think she won it, actually. While she was in the show, we offered her £250,000 to join Toy Boy Warehouse, hoping she wouldn't accept, and also knowing that she couldn't accept because she was in the jungle. So we offered her £250,000 to be the face of Toy Boy Warehouse. We then sent that to her management, but then leaked it to the press, saying, we're in talks with the management, thinking that Carol Vorderman was going to join. And the story broke, and actually it was really good. We had a great reaction to it. It made a lot of the nationals. But then when Carol came out of the jungle, people were asking her, being so are you going to join Toy Boy Warehouse? And she said, she took it in good nature, and she said, of course, I'm the new arse of Toy Boy Warehouse, sign me up. Again, another branded quote, and it went everywhere, all the nationals, all radio, all TV. And actually that was the week after that, and the 2 weeks were our highest revenue weeks ever, I think the business has been running 9 years. So yeah, that was a good one.
Incredible manipulation of the media. As a journalist, I'm like, wow, what you toyed with the media on that one. But I'm old school. From a journalist perspective, data still wins, so we don't have the sexy $250,000 to offer. I look forward to the State of the Single America study that the company that owns J-Date and Christian Mingle puts out every 2 years. And I've had a lot of stories that I've pitched based off of just the incredible data. And also I did a feature once with the great photos, of course, still win. So when you're working with these media media outlets, I'll speak on behalf of all the journalists you will pitch, and we're overworked and underpaid. So when you come with great images, it makes such a difference sometimes. So I've had sites or apps that have sent we just married, and just a recap of some of their biggest success stories, and great images had me take it to our editor-in-chief and have a story. And from a personal perspective, timing always matters, and so I definitely see the biggest hits. I've jokingly said in our matchmakers and dating experts breakaway that yesterday was a big day for our business in Amsterdam because it was a holiday for them. So I know when they're slower in the world, how can I mine those moments for engagement?
And so, I mean, you've answered it slightly to some degree, but I'm going to carry on with the question. So I was going to ask, I assume a lot of people in the room will be doing their own PR, and I know that I'm a big fan of this. I know Justin's a big fan of this. That you don't have to necessarily go to an agency, particularly when you're a startup. You can, build relationships yourself with journalists. So, if there's someone in the audience thinking, what, I want to reach out to specific journalists, Twitter, for example, is a very good way of doing that. But what catches your eye? As from a journalist perspective, how can someone really engage you?
Really hit me in the heart. Either that nice mixture of this is a bigger story, so this is what's coming on trend, or here's this new stat or information you might not know about, mixed with something that's really engaging and captivating. I don't know if that answers fully. So especially from the business standpoint, humanize the experience as much and really see it as a service and something new to offer.
And would you say personalizing it? Because I know I used to get really fed up when I was at
Oh,
Guardian,
absolutely.
And I just get these,
quality definitely beats quantity. So the person who focuses on 5 people for this quarter, I'll focus on 5 relationships versus 50 definitely makes a difference. Even someone like Justin, I knew a Bay for a while, and they were great as engaging me for me to want to find opportunities to feature and partner because they were consistent. So it's definitely the same way we think of the 8 to 12 touches from a business perspective. It's definitely that same experience from a journalist.
It's about remembering that the journalist's a person, isn't it? And creating an actual relationship rather than just sending them a load of spam in their inbox that is just going to go straight in the trash.
Absolutely. And to the point, I do want to jump on. I think sometimes we go to what's familiar and what we know and like-minded, but I think even to that notion of Fox News, I hate that you guys know about Fox News, but of course, sometimes when you go to outlets that aren't necessarily traditional, it creates definitely more of a spark of a conversation. So I've done, shows that I don't listen to and don't engage with, but I know it'll bring out another side and another exposure that I might not have thought about.
So it's quite funny. Possibly it's because I spend quite a lot of time with these guys, but you basically are answering all my questions that are written on here before I even start the question. But I'm going to ask the question anyway, because only Mike really touched on this. So for the other 3 of you, I mean, is all PR good PR in terms of actually conversion? Because you talked about Carol Vorderman and the massive increase there. Have you found? Have you put work into PR stories and then put real time into something and then just seen actually no results come from it?
Yeah, a lot. I think basically where we've fallen into is that it has to be the sweet spot of the narrative of the value that your product offers. So we've done stuff that's been about pride or about LGBTQ individuals, and it gets great coverage and it just does not convert, or at least to a scale that's actually useful. It really has to be the story has to be about what people get out of it to actually drive the download from it. And we had our first ever experience of big bad PR. Someone on our team may have done something sketchy with something and used content that we shouldn't have. And
everyone's going to now Google this.
Yeah, no, it wasn't in mainstream. It turned into an influencer marketing campaign without us meaning to. So basically, we had an intern in. She nicked a video off of a pop star, re-edited it, put on new music, and then put a bunch of budget behind it on Facebook ads. And then it turns out she's a singer and she has a Twitter audience of 500,000. They saw it. She then has a best friend who's a YouTuber who then made a whole video about how shitty our company is for scraping this person's content and profiting off it. And the reality was, I think this person had I think she had $100 to put behind Facebook ads, but that was enough for one person to see it and then turn into this thing. We caught it too late, at 6, the video had already been made on YouTube, and obviously you see it and freaked out and was like, oh my God, this is such high volumes of repost tweets and everything. Massive day for downloads on her, and it actually was a really great day for user growth. So although there's the kind of long-term PR message of we don't want to disengage this audience and, have them think that we're a bad brand. And so now we're doing something with the pop star where like any money that was spent, we're now giving it to her and like 10xing it and letting her donate it to a charity. And then we're releasing a statement together. So it kind of brings them on
So
side.
you get more PR out of it.
But yeah, exactly. But it was like it was my first ever like real insight of like, yeah, I guess like all PR is good PR in some senses.
Justin?
I think I would tend to agree with that. The only caveat being, because we have like relatively high churn in our industry, you could do something that works really well, but if it's the wrong demographic that you're bringing in, you may bring a lot of downloads in, but then not a lot of users who stay more than a week or a month, et cetera. So I think all PR is good PR if it's done with the right channels and right audience in mind.
Yeah, I think my kind of slight adaptation on that is I think all PR is good PR if you're looking at PR being awareness. And I think that particularly being in a niche, it's good to, you can be specific and you'll have a higher conversion rate, but actually having national awareness is really good because it's all those conversations that we don't track through links and stuff and people encouraging friends onto platforms. The one thing we're quite aware of is actually not putting out negative messages about age gap relationships. And unfortunately, the media will only speak about age gap if it's like 45 years and she looks like his great grandmother, and and of course, because that's what we're all guilty. That's what we want to read, right? So I think
not me.
No, you're just on your memes, right? So we try and balance that because we have had stories where we had a fantastic woman, Layla, who went into the press. She got overly sexualized in the press. It was actually manipulated on the media, and they wouldn't give her a read back. And then she was really unhappy about it, and rightly so. And actually, it attracted a set of audience that we wouldn't usually have targeted, just because it ruins the kind of network effect which we've built up, being predominantly female focused. So yes, all PR is good PR from an awareness point of view, but I think dependent on what your stance is, and as I was saying earlier about being authentic to the value you're providing, it needs to be aligned to that in order to be kind of actually valuable to the business rather than just that day's growth.
And so my final question before we open to the floor is around relationships. And I was wondering, what if you've got any examples of sort of things you've done where you felt like you really did build a good relationship with a journalist, and what you did. So I've got an example that I can think of from a journalist perspective. So a few years ago, Badoo soft launched Huggle, and the way that they soft launched it, they approached 10 journalists and they brought us into their office. They paid us as consultants and asked us to look at the product and to suggest improvements. Then 3-4 weeks later, they held a private dinner where they thanked us all for our contributions to their app and made us feel like we were almost founders of this app. And honestly, I've never seen journalists going away so keen to write about it. The irony is they actually canned the launch, so they didn't launch it at the time. But it was, and they must have spent a lot of money paying us all as consultants, but paying for the dinner. But that I have never, and they had the cream of the crop, not including myself, I'm not saying that, but the cream, they had some incredible journalists from the UK press, all in one room, all desperate to write about this app because they kind of felt like an ownership in it, which I thought was really interesting. I just wondered if you had any kind of different examples of relationship building.
I'm thinking of a lot of different ones, both as a journalist expanding, but also people who've built a great rapport from our branding. I'm still thinking. Give me a few. I had one in mind, but it wasn't PR.
You can talk about relationships. That's fine. Go on.
I thought about Pat Mitchell, who heads TED Women in globally, but is having in New Orleans. So I'm a finalist pretty close that I'll be presenting later this year. But I think what worked there was really following where people go and seeing people as people and not brands, I guess. I don't know.
My favorite tactic is get drunk with them and then add them on Facebook. And I haven't found anything else to be as effective. Getting drunk, first of all.
You were going to say, and then pull them.
Yeah, and then go for a snog. Don't do
not those kind of relationships.
But honestly, when you've had a couple of drinks, everyone's so much more chilled and relaxed, and it actually becomes a genuine friendship. And then that's the easiest way where you can just email them, and you're not pitching a story. You're kind of saying, "Hey, I got this thing coming up. What do you think?" It makes it much easier. But what I'm not very good at is like sending, you're meant to send like little reminders of like, oh cool, I love this article that you wrote, and I just don't have enough time and I forget to do that stuff. Facebook makes that so much easier for me. And if once you're friends with a journalist on Facebook, when they post any picture or do something, it's a really light engagement and a simple way for them to like see a notification of like, oh, Robyn liked your article or Robyn liked your picture. So it kind of keeps you front of mind with them. And maybe Facebook's better for me because that's my more natural platform, but find the one that you spend the most time on and keep interacting with them slightly on that.
And lots of journalists are on Twitter. I would say that that's a real hotspot if you just want to engage with journalists and you haven't quite got to that friend on Facebook level, because some people are a bit funny.
Just do it. It might be a bit weird, but you just have them. Just go for it.
Just stalk them.
Yeah, I would say just quickly, one thing that's worked really well for me is sending like relevant either founders or articles that are pertinent to that particular writer, because it just shows that, I'm not just reaching out to you about the stuff that I'm working on. It's about other things that are going to be relevant to you and help you do your job better. So when they think about, oh, well, he sent me like five potential stories or topics that I found interesting over the course of a year, I'm going to dedicate something like my next piece to your brand without you even having to do any more outreach than just sharing articles you're already reading.
Well, and I know that Charreah won't be offended by me saying this, and I say this with the journalism hat on. Journalists are lazy. If you can make their job as easy as possible for them, then you're halfway there.
We're not lazy, we're overworked. And so when you make it easier, it's easier on everyone. One caveat I would add, just from a journalist perspective, is if you are building authentic relationship where it's like, yeah, we are Facebook friends, that's great. But you want to make sure that you put in those likes, because the worst thing is when someone does, as a journalist, when you get a Facebook message from someone you don't know who's pitching, and it's just kind of, it's not the easiest way for me to do business. So the person who's like, hey, where do you like me to send? Because a lot of times when you do send in-house, they want to make it easy to forward and share. So one of the things I love about Justin with his newsletter, it's easy for me to forward or print it or take it into a meeting or share with a colleague who's on deadline and needs a great source. So just make sure as you are using those casual networks to build a relationship to when it's time to do business, just to see how they like to do business.
I think the one thing, and I must say I don't think we're very good at building like massively longer term relationships. I think it's something we need to get better at, but we always, with every engagement, we always like make sure we go above and beyond, and that has and hasn't worked in the past, particularly within TV. TV's always been really good, and we've had couples that get engaged on some shows and stuff, and that's always been an incredible spikes for us. So we're always really keen to work with any production companies in whatever way, but they're so flaky in terms of actually coming through, and in the past we've burnt a lot of time by being dedicated to go above and beyond. And I mean, there's even been cases where we've put on events for people, and like we turned around a speed dating event in 6 days once, and just to get it filmed, and then it didn't even make the final cut. We've also been in final cuts, but they're not got mentions, and particularly if you're doing any stuff with the BBC, they'll just say, oh, we're not allowed to do that, and anyone will now say, we can't do that under regulation. So the kind of thing we live by is going above and beyond, just in the same way that's relationship building, right? If people think you're useful, they do come back to you, but TV is one that you get a lot more from it, but actually the failure rate is a lot higher, so it kind of probably balances out.
So it's almost lunchtime. I'm just aware of time, but does anyone in the crowd have a burning question you'd like to ask any of the guys before we break for lunch? That's nice and easy then. Okay, so we've got an hour for lunch, so if you can all make it back for 1:45. Lunch will just be in the lobby, and it's kind of like a stand-up, kind of picky lunch, so just chill out, relax, go and sit in the sunshine for a bit, and we'll see you back here. Thanks, guys.